And once we get a game accepted on Lichess, then we'll switch back to Lichess. Wow. All right. Well, that was convenient timing. Okay, great. PushEmBb, good luck. Okay. We've got a double king's pawn game here. All right. Very nice. A lot of options for white here. We could see an Italian game. I'm expecting the Ruy Lopez. Yeah, you should always expect the Ruy Lopez in slow time controls. So we'll play a6. No problem. Can I play you on Lichess? Well, maybe after this game. maybe we can play after this game. You guys can be next on the list. Okay, so knight f6. Knight f6 is the main move here. And then castles. Bishop e7. PushEmBb. A strong rapid and classical player. Playson. Going for scholars isn't good for classical. I would say probably not. Most of the time, going for scholars mate is probably not going to be a super strong plan. Even in the faster time controls. Okay, so we're not going to get a marshal. No marshal this time, but we see d3, which means we're probably going to get some more positional type game. Though I will say that I don't think this move is particularly the most accurate. Because I think generally white wants to try to play d4 in one move. Okay. But this pawn is now... It's now being threatened. So we'll start with b5. d3. I like c3 too. I like c3. Yeah, anytime I see e4, e5, I'm basically expecting a Ruy Lopez. I'm expecting a Ruy Lopez. Because I think it's the strongest opening. Or at the level that I'm at, it's one of the most solid choices. If I see anything else, I'm very happy to play against anything else because I don't think many other openings are really super testing in classical chess other than the Ruy Lopez that start with e4, e5. Like Italian game, I'm very confident about facing in classical chess. And especially stuff like the Ponziani and King's Gambit, I'm like very, very confident in facing those in classical chess. So the Ruy Lopez is what I expect white to play. It's the strongest line. You should expect your opponent to play the strongest lines. Scotch. Yeah, Scotch and four knights, they're not bad either. They're not bad. Okay. Let's try to focus on the game. This is 30 plus 20, so we've got a lot of time. I think we want to play bishop c5. And if he plays bishop e3, then we can play d6. Right? I think right now, he might even be threatening to play knight g5. So how about this? What if we play bishop c5? If he plays bishop g5, then this pin might be a little bit annoying. But we have not committed d6 yet, so we may be able to drop it back, but I don't know if that would be a waste of time. So right now I'm debating, should we play bishop e7 or bishop c5? And I'm sure there's a correct theoretical answer. Like I'm sure this question has been asked before. And unfortunately, I don't actually know the answer. I don't actually know the answer here. I feel like this is a very strong diagonal. And okay. I'm going to play bishop c5. And if he plays bishop g5, then I I don't know if I am... Okay, he does play bishop g5. We could start with h6. Bishop takes f2 and knight g4. It doesn't actually work because the bishop is defended from the knight. But also, I will ask not to suggest moves. Please don't suggest moves. Just because if I didn't see that, or if that worked and I didn't see it, then that wouldn't be very good. Am I a grandmaster from Mate Chess? I'm not a grandmaster. I'm not a grandmaster, but maybe one day I will become a grandmaster. So what I'm debating is, do I really, like, can I take with the pawn and then just attack on the G file? That's what I'm trying to figure out. And like castle queenside. D6, bishop E6, queen D7, castle's queenside. And then, you know, like take with the pawn. If I play knight E7. Well, if I play it right away, I hang my pawn. So let's start with D6. And I think we've got a nice plan here. We'll play H6, and then we'll play knight E7. With the idea of coming to knight G6. Okay. Okay, this is classical. There's no reason to be moving this quickly. H6, what if he plays D4? Well, I can take. He'll take. And then I'll take. And that position looks very good for me. Well, actually, he does have this tactic, which is takes, takes, and queen d5 check in that line. And that wins back the piece. Or wins back the pawn, actually. It just wins back the pawn. I can't even really play rook f8, king g8 in the end, because if I play rook f8, my pawn on h7 hangs. So that's kind of unfortunate. H6, I feel like D4 is very unlikely to be a good move, though. Although, we might back up with the bishop, just so that... So why? Knight E7, takes, takes. D4, takes, takes. Ooh. Yeah, so we probably will not take that if he goes D4. In that case. Knight E7, D4. Bishop B6. But then we're just losing a pawn. Okay. So let's start with H6. We're not expecting him to take. Okay, he backs up very, very quickly. As he should. I think bishop H4 is very clearly the best move here. Bishop B6. If he plays D4. I could also play pawn to G5. I could play that move. Like, bishop B6, D4, G5, takes. Maybe I should develop this bishop first. Bishop B7. Get pressure along this diagonal. Bishop D5 may be annoying in some of these lines. I think I'll start with bishop B7. We have some potential of playing G5 later. He definitely has the option to sack, but I don't know. Knight E7, knight G6 is the other idea. Could all be prep and he's gaining time. That's true. We're not actually that deep into the game. This could still be part of his prep. I would be slightly surprised, though, considering the amount of time he's spent on some of his... He has spent some amount of time, right? Yo, Joe Bruno STL, what's up, man? How am I not snowed in? Well, maybe I would be snowed in if I lived in St. Louis. But I am not actually living in St. Louis right now. Okay, so he plays a4. He's a very clear idea here to open up the a file so his rook can be activated. Generally, when a4 is played in the Ruy Lopez, b5 is not a bad move to play as black, just because you want to keep the b file shut down. And so I think that's my top candidate move right now. And if he takes, then that's actually just extremely bad for his pawn structure. My knight gets d4 and b4, and my bishop would get b4. So I'd probably take on b4 with the bishop, have the d4 square for the knight. Although, I mean, I could take with the knight, pressure this backwards d3 pawn. I think actually that's probably a little bit better. a5, solidify the knight in there. So I think b4 is a pretty clear move here. And neither of us will take. He'll probably play like knight bd2. Did not know that. Yeah, it's it's a little misleading, right? A little misleading because I'm on the St. Louis Chess Club channel. So most people who stream on this channel live in St. Louis. They're streaming from St. Louis. Not me. Okay, so we do see this d4 move. And let's take a look here. Let's take a look. I also have to be worried about like this tactic. And my bishop hangs. Later. Takes. Takes. Bishop b6. And I think that's okay. This pawn would be hanging. Knight. We could play a5 and castle. Bishop b6. Whoa. I got startled. Gory, what's up, man? If we drop it back, then takes, that's actually super okay. Like we actually want that. But the knight's overworked. Maybe we didn't do this super well. Because I think we made a mistake. Because the knight might be overworked here. Oops. So we have to take. And hopefully we're going to be okay. PushEmBb. Right. And now, of course, we'll back up. If we play bishop b6, then a5 maybe is annoying, but we have knight takes a5. So I think we're okay there. We reroute the knight to c5. But probably just bishop all the way back to a7 is a little bit safer. Allowing this bishop to be attacked by the pawn like this, I think, is unnecessary. We want to play a5 anyway. a5. The bishop may return to b6 later. Overall, we're definitely worse here. Definitely worse. You know we're worse because white has the massive center. It's very hard for us to fight for the center. Opponent finally thinking for a little bit. I think maybe my opponent was not prepared to play a classical game. It can be very difficult to keep your focus during an online classical game, I think. Especially at the high level here. So I'm not too surprised my opponent is not using a lot of their time. Hopefully we can... I mean, I don't know. If they're playing well, it doesn't really matter if they're using their time or not. They still have a better position than I do. So, I can't really say much. Gene Bands, what's up, man? Okay, so he does play a5. Which I think is a strong move because I wanted to play a5 myself. However, I do have the opportunity to win this center pawn now, which actually looks pretty valuable. That looks like a very, very valuable center pawn. The other thing he could do is he could sack here. And then I play rook g8. He can play bishop back to h4. I could take this guy, or I could even just play rook to g4 and then threaten rook takes e4. So I think sacking probably doesn't work. So I think I'll go for this. Win the pawn. I can escape the pin, no problem. g5, bishop g3, takes, and castles. I probably take the bishop. He gets a check. I can play knight e7. I'm going to castle and play knight g6. Kind of solidify. And I have fantastic bishops sniping the board. So I think I'm going to go for that. PushEmBb. We'll see what you think. This might be a side effect of not using his time. I think it's a pretty erroneous mistake. One thing that I think really helps improve your classical chess is actually meditating. I think meditating can be quite useful for improving your focus during the game. Because all meditating is it's just thinking about nothing. That's all it is. And just appreciating life, appreciating existence and the current moment. So I think that practicing meditating is actually an interesting way to improve your focus if you have trouble focusing on classical chess. Because that's really all it is. Meditation is like focus practice. It's kind of strange. Am I okay? I'm totally fine. A kiwi fruit 0 says, I think white has compensation for the pawn, but I'm not very good, so what do I know? Well, I think maybe what that is I think white's position was better before, like a couple moves ago. And so even when they lose the pawn, like black's position, black's biggest weakness in this position is going to be their long-term king safety, right? I'm probably going to have to find solace on the king side, and it'll be somewhat reminiscent of King's Gambit for black. And I think I'll be okay. But yeah, I think this center pawn it's a very critical pawn in white's position. It's maybe even white's best pawn in the position. And so you really don't want to lose that. Really don't want to lose that. So I'm very happy to get this pawn. He does have this move, which is e5, which is interesting. Oh. I wonder if he'll play it. Let's calculate some variations. I was going to say I don't think there's much to think about in this position, but I actually don't know what exactly I want to do if my opponent does play this move, e5. I'm kind of in denial. Actually, I didn't see it before I played g5, and I think it might actually be a strong move for my opponent. So e5, if they take, okay, I can trade queens. The good thing about that is that it totally opens up my bishops. So my bishops will be very, very powerful if he plays this move. But the downside is this pawn may be very, very weak. He's going to attack it with bishop g3, and it might be really difficult for me to defend it. So e5, do I take or do I do something else? I could play knight g4. And then he'll obviously have to save his bishop at that point. And then I have the option of taking. But I probably don't want to do that because it opens up his rook file. So e5. My other option that I have is taking his bishop. He'll take my knight, and then I can take the pawn. And I think that is not bad. The main concern about that is my king safety, right? I would probably have to castle queenside, which is actually not that bad. Like, my king has some weird type of safety on this queenside, so I think that is probably the best way to go. If he plays e5, if he plays this move, I'll take, he'll take, and then I'll take. So I still win a pawn, but it's a very unhealthy pawn because my king side is shattered. I'll very likely lose back the h4 pawn later in the game. But once again, that doesn't change the fact that my bishops are still very powerful. I'll be attacking this d4 pawn 3 times, so he'll actually have to move it because he can't defend it again. So he'll probably play d5 if that happens. And in that case, I do have queen takes b2. But I think that would actually win material, because I thought at first that it lost material because my opponent can play rook a2, and my queen's attacked and my knight's still attacked. But actually, now I'm not sure, because I thought after rook a2 I had queen takes f2 checkmate, but there's an x-ray defense from the rook, so I would still have bishop takes f2 check. But that'd probably not be good, because then my queen and my bishop and my knight would all be hanging. So maybe queen takes b2 doesn't actually work there. So once again, the line is e5, takes, 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 d5. And then the other obvious move is just knight e5, which I think is not a bad move. And we'll go from there. His bishop is shut down. So is mine, though, kind of. But this pawn on d5 could be a weakness that we could attack, potentially. Maybe not even knight e5. Maybe knight e7 just to attack the d5 pawn again. Also block the e file so there's no like queen e2 check. We're still hitting the b2 spot. So if he castles, we'd have the option of taking on b2. Probably don't want to, because we're probably going to be castling queenside, so we don't really want to open up the b file. But yeah, we would castle queenside. Get our rooks on the e file. The f7 pawn would not hang because the d5 pawn is blocking the bishop, of course, so no worries there. Okay. So I think we know what we're going to do if our opponent plays e5 now, which is good. You should calculate on your opponent's time if you can. So yeah, there was obviously a lot that my opponent had to calculate there. There was sacking. There's bishop g3. There's e5. So it's no surprise that they took a long time there. But I think here we just nab the pawn and be happy. That's why we played this move, wasn't it? So let's go for it. He was definitely calculating the sack. That's an entire game they could have played just thinking. That's true. It's kind of surreal to think about. Like, when you're playing classical chess, sometimes you can think more about a single position than like an entire game. It's one of the beauties about classical chess. Right. So I don't think that move is a big concern. I think we just play... well, I was going to say queen e7, but we actually have a bigger move, which is knight takes d4. And the bishop is defended like that. However, knight takes, bishop takes, and f3 is not super hot. It's not a very hot take. So I think first order of business is unpinning, and then maybe we can go for this. So I think queen e2 is probably an inaccurate move. Maybe. But we've got to start with queen e7. Let's unpin. And I don't know. We could castle kingside. We could castle queenside. I think we can still go either way at this point. I don't think one is particularly safer than the other one at this moment. What are some possible moves for my opponent? Castles is a very obvious one. He could play knight bd2, which is not a bad move either. In that case, we'd probably take. And then he'd trade queens and then take, and then we'd win a juicer. Or sorry, I forgot the knight actually defends. So he could just take back with the knight. But then we would trade queens, and then we'd win a juicer. We're not winning a pope because the knight defends the pope. What if castling worked as well? Since if they take the knight, you can pin the queen to the king. So if I castle kingside, if they take and I play rook e8, then they have this move at least. They have knight e5, so they can sack the piece back, which is probably not something I want to go into. Maybe it worked, but I don't know if I wanted to commit castling kingside at this point. Because here I still have the option of castling queenside, bringing this rook to the e-file, and it's gravy. Right? I give myself an extra option, which could be very useful later in the game. Did you know the Pope technically is also a bishop? I think I did know that. So you have to be an archbishop to become the Pope. There's only like 300 archbishops in the world. Right? Is that? No. I'm thinking of cardinals. You have to be a cardinal to become the Pope. And there are only like 300 cardinals in the world. And in order to become a cardinal, I think you have to be an archbishop. And in order to become an archbishop, you have to become a priest. So I think it goes priest. Or no, wait. Is bishop below priest or above priest in the Catholic Church hierarchy? It's above priest. Yeah, so here's how it goes. I think this is how, I'm not looking at chat. I think it goes priest, bishop, archbishop, cardinal, and then the Pope. I'm pretty sure that is the hierarchy. Archbishop just sounds cool. Bishop is above priest. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think priest it's like the lowest level. Well, where's deacon? Deacon's above priest. Okay. Let's look this up. Catholic Church hierarchy. Okay. Pope, cardinals, archbishops, bishops, priests, deacons. The people. We were close. We were close. We just didn't know where deacons were. But I think we got everything else correct. Nice. Okay. All right, we've got a nice castle gang here, yo. Castle gang, what's up? So, I really like this move for 2 reasons. The first is we get rid of our opponent's bishop pair. And the second is it forces a queen trade, which I'm going to be very happy with because my king is much less safe than his. So I think I certainly am going to play this move. Takes. He'll take. I'll take. And then he'll decide which way to take. And I think we get this juicer in the end. Is that correct? It might be a little bit sus with this guy. But we would also be checking him when we capture with a bishop on d4. So we might have time to protect this spot with like f6. Something like that. I think knight takes g3 is going to be a good move here. Let me just double check to make sure I'm not blundering. There's no reason to be super speedy here. Takes. 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 Check. That move I can go here, I think. Takes. One thing and I think we're good there. I think we're good. One thing I'm maybe worried about is taking with the f pawn. But I think we're okay. If he plays bishop takes f7, I can't take with the king, because then he'd play knight takes d4 check, discovered check with the rook. So instead, I would play knight takes f3 double check, and then I'd capture the bishop. And that would be good. That would win a piece. Okay. I don't think it's a mistake. Let's go for it. Right. I think taking with the knight is just walking into a weakness. Like, this is a big weakness. And we want to keep pressuring this pawn, right? So I think taking with the king is a pretty clear choice here. We have d7 and f6, which both spots could be potential safe spots for our king. I think d7, it's a little bit safer, and it's good because it guards the e8 square. But the downside is that it doesn't defend the f7 pawn. And then f6, it's still pretty safe. Not really anymore because the f file is open, but it keeps the f7 pawn guarded. I think now is our opportunity to take this guy here. If he checks us, we have an opportunity for a discovered check. Let's just go for this. Knight takes d4 straight away. I think this is good. I don't think this is a mistake. This guy's defended. This guy's opened up. We're up 2 pawns. The bishop is hit. So you have to take this, I think. You have to take it. I'm almost certain you do. We'll take back, of course. And now this guy's hit. So I think we play f6. And then our bishop is in an outpost on e5. I think that is not bad. This spot is still hit. Or we could play d5. But that blocks our light squared bishop. So I don't know if I really like that move. It's actually not trivial yet, but we're definitely getting there. This might be some idea, although I'm a little nervous about doing it because the f5 pawn can be undermined. I don't have this immediately because he throws in the check in between, which is not going to be great. So I think f6 is... Really, it's between f6 or d5. My one worry about f6 is that he can eventually trade this bishop for the knight. And then I think I'll have a weakness. I'll probably take with the f pawn, but then the b4 spot is maybe a weakness. And if I play c5, then d6 becomes a weakness. But I think I don't think it's actually that big of a concern. I can keep it very well defended. This a6 with white's light squared bishop is going to be a long-term weakness for me. So ideally, I can get the light squared bishops traded off sooner than later. This is maybe a mistake. I'm curious to see if he'll sack this pawn. I don't think it's a super bad idea. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea because if he defends it, he's just much too passive, right? He needs to try to get some sort of counterplay here. Takes. So I don't hate the decision to sack the pawn, but it is a free pawn, so I'm going to take it. I think it's the swindler's choice, right? He's in swindle territory right now. Objectively, it might be a bad move. The conservative chess player would hate knight d2. Stockfish is a conservative chess player. But the swindler plays knight d2 all day. Knight d2 is the swindler's first choice. Comes in for chess, learns about Catholicism. Hell yeah. We talk about a lot of different stuff here. Whoa! Oh no! Oh my goodness. Well, good game to PushEmBb. Very good game. I can't say that I am surprised at the resignation. I think it's an early resignation. But good game. Good game to PushEmBb. Let's take a look here. I want to take a look at this analysis. We played... Wow. Look at this, guys. What can I say? We played fantastically. Epic win from a kiwi fruit. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. E4, E5, knight F3. I thought we were worse. I won't lie. I thought we were worse in the middle game. But turns out we were okay. Bishop C5. It is a move here. I was agonizing over Bishop E7 or Bishop C5. I think both are playable. Well, okay, now we know that both are playable because we looked at the Masters database. But there are advantages to both, right? I went for Bishop C5, Bishop G5, and this was all good. The main the main downside to putting your bishop here is that this pin can be very annoying in some lines, which it was maybe slightly annoying, but we broke it with G5. Bishop H4. You can see masters have done the same here. Bishop B7, A4, B4. Keeping the A file closed, very nice. And then D4, this was actually a mistake. E takes D4, C takes D4, bishop all the way back to A7, and A5. Right. It seems like maybe it's not a bad move at first, but then you see that, well, it actually loses a very, very critical pawn on G5 after black plays G5, which is exactly what happened. And then Queen E2, another small mistake there, Queen E7. And castles, unfortunately, just allows me to simplify into a very winning endgame. F6, knight D2, bishop takes B2. All right, very good game, PushEmBb. Very nice. That was only an hour. That was actually quite a short classical game.